In this edition of XTV Newsers, we are talking to a woman who left her TV news job. She started her own business and likes to fly drones on the side. Hi, I'm Jennifer Moore, XTV producer, and we are here with Renee Stoll. And Renee used to be a reporter, and then she decided to leave and do her own thing. We're going to talk to her all about her business and what it's like to leave and transition to something else. Renee, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Jen. I like that we got to talk a little sewing too on the side.
I know you're like probably one of the, in case you guys aren't aware, I like to sew and I have a sewing channel as well. And I rarely meet anyone else who works in TV news that has any knowledge of sewing or like quilting. So when Renee said she had experience, I was very excited because you just, as you know, you don't meet a lot of people in this business that do a lot of like DIY or like handmade stuff. So I'm sure for you, it was definitely a stress reliever as well during your time in the business. I know I used it as sort of a form of therapy. Well, Renee, can you tell us a little bit about your background and like what kind of jobs you've had in newsrooms?
I have had just about every job you can imagine in a newsroom. I went to USF, go Bulls,
Yay!
Tampa, and then my first internship, I was really fortunate. I worked at one of your previous stations at ABC Action News in Tampa.
The Kevin Bacon of TV news, apparently.
Right. I learned a lot there on all different sides. And then when I got my first job in news, it was not as a reporter. I actually went to school thinking I was going to be a director. I wasn't into being a reporter or anything like that. I wanted to sit back and, look at all the screens. But then I got my first job in news and it changed me a little bit. It wasn't reporting though. I worked in Fort Myers at the Fox station there, and I've done everything. I've run the audio board. I've been an editor. I have run the deco board. I was a production assistant. I moved cameras around on the morning show at 4 a.m. I even had, as a production assistant, I even had to sand the studio floors and recoat them with glaze. I mean, for my whole $11 an hour. So,
Oh my God, you're a real DIYer there.
I did everything. And then eventually I became a reporter at the station. I worked my way up, became a reporter. After that, I worked at another station also in the same market. Then I went to Orlando, worked at one of the toughest stations I've ever worked at Channel 9 there. I really enjoyed my contacts there though. And then, I thought, okay, I'm going to try and go to New York. I'm just going to, try and see if I can get a job there. And luckily I did. I worked at WABC, the #1 station in the country. It was amazing. It was brief, but it was amazing. I really enjoyed, I'm from New York, so I enjoyed going back there. But that's when the gears kind of changed. So I was finding that maybe my time in news, it was past. I needed to try something different.
Wonderful. And what was it about the TV news business that was appealing to you and made you want to get into it?
It was actually when I was interning at ABC Action News. I thought I wanted to be a director, but then I was interning with one of the anchors there, and I went out with her on a story, and I just realized how much I really liked talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
I like talking to people from all different backgrounds. I like hearing their stories. I like creating a bond with these people and knowing how to talk to them and figuring out, okay, I need this interview, how do I get this person to do an interview with me on camera? So it was a little bit of just really learning how to talk to people. And that's my favorite aspect of it. I really enjoy just meeting people from all different areas, and especially when I worked in New York and I traveled all of the boroughs and just meeting so many different types of people. And even by far, that's the part I miss the most now.
Oh, all right. So on the flip side, can you share with people some of maybe the downsides about working in news, the hard parts?
Well, when you work in news, you give up your life to your station, basically. They dictate, if you're on air, they dictate how you look, what color your hair is going to be, or what length it's going to be. sometimes what outfits you'll wear. And they also dictate your schedule, and you really have to be on call almost all the time. You work holidays, you work all those days, and I just found that it was taking a toll on me, because a lot of times you're working in cities or states that aren't close to your family, and you're working on holidays, so you don't get to see your family for those holidays. And so that's a big bummer. That's one of those things that every holiday when you're working it and you see other people enjoying it, you're like, oh.
Or you're covering the Christmas, you're doing your like holiday, your like last minute holiday gift package or something.
Right. So that, to me, that's the big bummer of working in TV. I mean, there's other things where I think also towards the end of my career, they were just trying to really encompass so much, because social media is now becoming such a huge part, and there were, you have to do so many tweets a day. You have to
like that John Oliver sketch about journalism.
Oh, right. You have to do tweets. I had one station I had to actually make packages on my phone and do those and update the website and do all this while you're also covering the story, while you're also trying to talk to witnesses, while you're also trying to enterprise stories. So I think more and more gets put on your plate, and not a lot gets taken off towards the end of my career for me personally. And it was a stressor. It was a big stressor.
That definitely seems to be a trend in newsrooms, is people have to do more for the same pay, and the workload just never lets up. And I think that's definitely something that people don't realize if you don't work in the business, or if you've never been in a newsroom. It really thins people out fast, because not a lot of people can put up with that for years on end.
Yeah, for sure.
And is there something, I know sometimes the media gets a bit of a bad rap. Is there something that you would like the world to know about the TV news business that might not really be apparent?
For me, and I'm speaking strictly from a reporter position, is that I would have a lot of people think that I was just a talking head, that I did not enterprise my own stories or anything like that. I lived at the courthouse. I was there. I worked a night shift, but I was there 8 a.m. talking to the bailiffs, talking to, the attorneys that had big cases, looking stuff up, reading tons and tons of reports. And I think that there would be people who would be like, oh, they just give you the stories, right?
Yeah, right. At the network level, it does work more like that. But I think that's something that I like talking to you guys, because the people, especially who work in local news, you work your butt off, literally every single day. And you guys don't know, I know reporters usually have to keep several changes of clothing in the car, because you don't know where you're going to be. You could be at a funeral, you could be at a fire. So you got to really, it's such an all-consuming thing to do.
Right. You would have your wading boots and your outside gear, because if you're reporting in Florida, you don't know if all of a sudden you're going to be covering the rain has caused a flood somewhere or something. So, people, I guess people would just assume you know what you're going out on and you just go do it. But that one story probably had hours of setup on my end when I'm not working, when I'm not getting paid, to set it up in order for that story to come through. So I think that's one of the things that just irked me a little, because I'm like, no, I did a lot of work for that story.
and that is a really good point. And also, you could be on multiple stories a day.
Easily.
I've seen this all the time. Your story gets switched several times. You end up starting off on one story, then that falls through, or they switch you to something else. I was kind of glad to be back at the newsroom, because at least I was in one spot. But I really feel for a lot of those reporters, especially the one-man bands. That's even rougher.
That happened more times than I can mention. I mean, every day you go out on one story, and it's a story that you worked so hard to make happen. Oh, we're just going to boast that, and now we're going to make.
And you're like, come on, God.
So yeah, that has something to do with it.
Well, is there, out of all the stories you've worked on, is there one in particular that just had a really big impact on you?
Oh my God, there's so many that were just either just strange or awesome.
I mean, you were in Florida, so for a long time.
I'm in the Mecca of odd news. My favorite stories were early in my news career. They were back to back. I got to rappel off a 30-story building, and I didn't really know I was going to be doing that day. So heels on, so I was rappelling in my heels.
Oh
And
my, wow.
that was so awesome, though. Those firefighters I worked with that day, I still see them sometimes because I'm back in the same area. And then the next day, I flew a World War II fighter plane. We put it up in the air, and he let me fly it for a little bit.
That is
And
awesome. I guess you're right. You never know what you're going to do. Do you have any tips for rappelling in heels, though?
that was fun. But then there's stories where I had a guy who had been arrested for allegedly trying to kill his girlfriend, and I did a jailhouse interview, and he looked me right in the face and confessed to everything. And my video wound up being used by the state attorney's office. So you have things like that on the serious side that stick with you, or the time that somebody yanked my mic and almost yanked my arm out of my pocket. So all those things start to come back to my head when you say that.
I hope I'm not giving you some sort of bad flashbacks here.
PTSD or something.
Well, let's talk about viral stories. I'm sure you've been a part of some, and you obviously have seen so many go through the news cycles. What kind of attributes do you feel like some of these have in common?
You know, it's hard to say. I did have one really good viral story, and I can see why that one became viral. It was about maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and it was the time when a lot of people were being foreclosed on by the bank. It was, the economy was horrible, and there was a homeowner who Bank of America messed up, and the homeowner didn't owe any money, and Bank of America was trying to foreclose on him. So he took him to court, he won, and then he never got paid by Bank of America for his court fee. So he foreclosed on Bank of America. He switched.
Oh my gosh.
So they came to the bank with a moving truck and deputies to start, hauling stuff out if they need to. And it was at a time where that really struck such a chord with people. I still see that story passed around once in a while on the web, and now it has like 30 million views or something. But it's just, usually it's something that really strikes a chord right now with people. And I love a good viral story. I love looking at it. A lot of times the viral stories are something that makes people feel good because they want to see something and they want to share something that makes them feel better. So that story definitely did it. I mean, it's hard to say. It's just so hard to say what will become viral.
It's like if we knew how to create surefire viral stories, we would be rich, right?
Yeah, right. I wish I had that answer.
I know, right? Well, it's interesting because I've been asking everyone that, and everyone has a slightly different answer, but the general theme definitely seems to be stories that make you feel good. Someone said stories that you can't see anywhere, like show me something I can't see anywhere else. Recently, there was that video of Dr. Larry Nassar, that Michigan gymnastics doctor, with that guy going after. So it's like stuff like that. Or I find it's people like that guy. They're like, way to go, dude, way to stick to that doctor, So stuff that kind of gets people feeling something, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It's something that, like with that Nassar thing, I'm sure people are thinking the same thing. So it's
like, if I was in that situation, would I do that?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I personally thought they should have let him keep going, but
But it went viral, and he had a GoFundMe page and everything. Yeah. So yeah, it was interesting.
I know. So there's that, and I'm sure you've covered lots of weird Florida news over the years too.
Oh yeah, I've had tons. All merged together.
I know. Or like the weird, the animal story. Florida always has good animal stories too.
Oh, I had one that went viral actually. That was a guy who saved a 91-year-old woman from an alligator.
Oh my gosh.
And she wound up losing a leg though.
Oh geez.
But she lived, which was shocking. And so there's always an animal story somewhere in Florida, trust me.
Yeah, and I remember in St. Pete we had that remember the missing monkey for a while? The missing monkey of St. Pete. Yes. And somebody started like a Facebook page for the monkey and was like pretending to be, I don't know, I just love those. Those are always my favorite. So obviously you are now working on the other side and you're helping to tell stories. For people watching that may be working in media relations, public relations, or marketing, and want to develop better relationships with media outlets, what kind of advice would you give to them from your perspective as a news reporter?
I'm sure you probably feel the same way. How many press releases did you get into your inbox that you're just like delete, 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 delete? I think the main thing is, I think some people think just keep it simple and give the who, what, when, why. But really the thing is tell a story. Tell me a story. Give me some kind of local connection. Give me a person I can interview. First of all, you always got to have that element, somebody local that has the connection that you can interview. It has to be some kind of thing that it changes people, either for the better or maybe it was something really bad that happened. Give me that local element and tell me the background and set it up like a real story. Like you're telling me a story and I'm like, oh, really? That's interesting, and yeah, just have that person. Keep it short. If you're trying to get the attention of media, don't give me, a paragraph this long.
We don't have the time for that. We didn't have the time to read all that.
And that's the thing is, I don't want to sound like a jerk, but reporters, producers, everybody's really busy in a newsroom. So I feel like you got to make it easy for them. I'm not saying do their job, but you got to make it easy for them to say, I have this person, they're ready to talk. We can do this here. Here's the story behind it. You really got to tell a story that evokes some kind of emotion.
Yeah, and it is a little bit sad because I feel like from my perspective, because I worked on the assignment desk and as a producer, and I felt like a lot of these people who were pitching us, they felt like they were media savvy, but it couldn't be like they thought they're like, yeah, I'm good at media relations, but they were not good at what they were doing, and they were definitely not using approaches that worked. And I think a lot of people think they understand media, but they really don't. Or I hated when people would call you and they'd be like, oh, I've seriously had people be like, oh, I know how journalism works. I have a master's degree in broadcast journalism. Or the people that are, I remember one guy said, I know how it works because I have a degree in theater. And I was like, man, and like, it's like the people like that, it's like, no, you have no idea, man. Like,
until you actually get in a newsroom, it's such a different beast, and it's just like any job, but really, until you actually do it, I don't think you understand the full scope of it.
No, definitely not. Okay, so obviously this is a YouTube channel, and there might be a lot of YouTubers watching, and some of them are trying to maybe develop or also try to get attention from TV stations or TV networks. If you were a YouTuber, what are some ways do you feel like YouTubers might be able to get noticed?
I was thinking about that, and that's a difficult one to answer because there's a lot of YouTubers, and I'm trying to figure out how those people get attention from local, because most of the time when you have a YouTube page, you're trying to, reach out to all over the world, So I was thinking, for a YouTuber, what's the latest trend? What's going on right now that you're doing a YouTube video, your YouTube concentrates on? Is it, we have the Emmys coming up. Or do you concentrate on styling? Maybe you could tie that in and get some kind of attention for that. I see the UPS man. My dog's probably going to start barking any second.
All right. Hey, I've got a cat wandering around in the background. So try to coordinate that.
He didn't ring the doorbell, so we're good.
All right. Well, I appreciate the answer, and I think it's kind of interesting because I guess from my perspective, now being part of the YouTube community and being a former TV news person, I feel like my TV news peers didn't really have YouTube on the radar. Like they watched YouTube videos, and when there was a viral story, everybody knew about it. But I feel like TV news folks should make an effort to get to know who the big YouTubers are, because you might not think they're a household name. Everybody under 25 knows who these people are. And sometimes when I would talk to people, I'd be like, hey, have you heard of Philip DeFranco or Casey Neistat? I would get a blank stare, and I'm like, look, these people get more views than a network news show. You should know who these people are. At least try to know the big ones, know what the channel Ryan Toys Review is, know who PewDiePie is, and at least have a basic knowledge. But I felt like a lot of these people just weren't on the radar in newsrooms, and I thought that was interesting, just because these people are, like, again, I'm sure in newsrooms a few weeks ago, people were Googling who Logan Paul was.
Right.
And I already knew who he was. Obviously, I'm probably not his target demographic, but those folks, when you have 10, 15 million subscribers, that's not a small audience at all. So it's kind of interesting to see how traditional media is trying to play with new media. I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
That's such a good point. I didn't think of it that way, but these people have more viewers than the number one station in the country, some of them. So they are big names. And sometimes I feel like in a newsroom, people, because a lot of the people aren't of that generation, that they might just kind of roll their eyes at it or be like, whatever. But that is becoming the generation. So that is becoming now. So I really think it is important for those people to be on your radar and know what they're doing, because they are making major headlines.
Yeah, and they're making way more money than we ever did too.
Right?
I'm like, wow. These people, there's so much money going into that space. I mean, I do think on the flip side, TV is trying to defend itself, because the advertising dollars are moving. And of course, some people feel like TV's getting left behind. So I don't know. And I haven't really seen I haven't really seen a lot of TV stations really leveraging platforms like YouTube very well. Besides just putting packages and raw video up.
That's a really good point, because you're right about that. They really just put their package on YouTube and put a link to it. But they really should consider the bigger picture here, because let's face it, a lot of people are doing the so-called unplug. I did it for so long.
I don't have cable currently.
Yeah. I really did. I unplugged and didn't have cable for a couple of years because I just was trying to be cheap and wanted to save money. But and then I got so used to it and I enjoyed not having it. And I had Netflix, I had Hulu.
Yeah, now with all these entertainment platforms, like you're like, okay, I'm good with my Amazon Prime and stuff, or I'm good with Hulu, or now you can even get like HBO a la carte. So like a lot of people, I'm like, sweet, all right, when is Westworld coming back? Because we're actually trying to time getting HBO when some shows are. We're waiting until these things are already out. But I mean, when you talk to someone under 30, a lot of them don't watch TV at all.
And they don't watch news.
No.
A lot of them, or they're getting their news from some kind of social media. So, I don't know what the answer is for the merge there, but it's got to happen.
Yeah, they got to figure out something. Well, okay, so there are still some people that are looking into getting into TV news. In fact, I've had people reach out on LinkedIn asking how to be a reporter, how to get into the business. What advice would you have in 2018 for trying to break into TV news?
Well, besides don't do it.
Yeah.
I would say, and again, this is just from the reporter standpoint. Well, first of all, I really enjoyed all the other jobs I did too. I loved having such a rounded idea of the newsroom. I love that. So I would definitely consider that. Start in a small market, do as much things as you can, hang out with people in different areas and learn more, because to me that was invaluable. I would also say that if you want to be a reporter, don't do it. This is my biggest pet peeve actually about reporting, or people trying to get into it. Don't do it because you want to be on TV. Yeah. That should be a byproduct of the fact that you really enjoy being a journalist, because you may not always work on TV, or you might be doing web stories, or you might wind up, doing online for a paper or something. That should not be your main goal, is being on TV. In fact, for me, I didn't care for it as much because I hated doing hair and makeup. In fact, this is like the first time I did hair and makeup in a long time for you. So.
Well, you know what? Yeah, I've noticed, like, I will try to film lots of stuff on a day I actually try to look. I'm like, all right, well, what can I bang out today so I don't have to put on makeup tomorrow?
Right. That once you get out of news, you don't have to do it as often. It's so nice. So that should really be not your main goal. You should, if you're doing it, strive to do your best presentation on camera, but really if you're a really good journalist, I think that is going to come forward much more, that you're into the story, you enjoy the story, you're knowledgeable of the story. That to me is kind of a little bit, you get an intern once in a while into the newsroom and they'd be like,
Oh,
well,
oh
I
my gosh.
trying to go to Chicago next. And you're
And you're like, or yeah, oh my god, yeah. And we've all worked with people that wanted to do the fun stuff but didn't really want to do the grunt work. I think
right,
it's interesting talking to you. You've had the kind of experience that's a little more humbling, and you can tell by talking to you that that's not, you're not all about that. And I think that's a good experience to have for anyone on air. Have off air jobs too, because that'll affect how you treat other people in the newsroom, and how like you'll have respect for those other jobs and
right.
realize that you're not doing it alone. But I've worked with people, like, they wanted to do their story and do live shots, but they didn't want to do the web story. They don't want to do any, again, and that somebody's got to do it. And I don't know, there's definitely a difference between people that want to story tell and do journalism and people that want to be on TV and be famous.
Right. And, there's so many relationships that I made with people that were from those different departments that are still resources to me now, especially now on a whole different scale. Just when I get stuck with an audio issue or any kind of issue when I'm creating videos now, those people are people I turn to that help me now. So it just makes you such a more rounded journalist in general, and just having so much more knowledge of how other people do their jobs. You have patience when there isn't a lot to go around in a newsroom sometimes. So although my patience can get real thin in a newsroom, but yeah, I just think that should not be your main goal.
Well, that's really good advice. Although if you were starting out now, what do you think you would have do different with everything with technology and social media? Do you like, because I think about that all the time. I'm like, if I was 22 now, what would I do? And I probably would pick a different path, but not because I didn't value the experience, but more just because things have changed so much too.
God, Jen, I really think I feel for people who are trying to start out now, just because there's so much technology. Learn that technology to the best ability is that you can take classes in how to use, this is actually something interesting that one of my stations did. They had somebody come in and showed us all these different techniques, how you could use Twitter to help you find somebody in that location where that crime scene happened, who might be a good witness to talk to. There's different ways that you can use Twitter and Facebook to search for people that would help you with your story, other than just posting about your story. So if I was starting out now in 2018, which God, I'm not, but if I would say, learn how to use those resources better, because it will make your job easier.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, so let's talk about why you decided to leave the business. I know you did it a few years ago, and you posted something about it on LinkedIn recently that seemed to get a lot of engagement. So people really seem to resonate with that.
When I was in news, I think every time, if I could spit it out, for a long time when I was in news, I had a side hustle going on. I always had something else. I was a realtor at one point. I do a lot of currency trading. I always had some other thing that I was into also. And I think that helped a little bit to make the transition. But when I decided to leave news, it wasn't actually, I worked at a station where my news director honestly didn't really want me there anymore. Oh. And I didn't want to be there anymore. And I think that showed well. So it wasn't like, I wish I could have been able to just make the big jump and do it and just get it over with. But I really wasn't. A lot of people are not prepared to do that in news, just get out and leave. They want to have another job as a backup. I tried to start making my transition. But for a while I took off, and I think just having all that time off, I thought I was going to go to another news job. But I just really enjoyed the freedom once I got out of news. It's addictive to really have that freedom of holidays. Yeah. It was actually around Thanksgiving and Christmas that I took my break, and I was like, I don't want to go back. This is kind of nice, And so getting out of news, I liked telling stories, but I just didn't like what I was doing in news anymore. It was like wherever the surveillance video is. I worked in the number one station, and there was surveillance video of a guy's dog that was stolen. I'm like, is this my story really? I'm in New
Anything
York.
with surveillance video makes it sexier. And WABC they do really like their surveillance video stories.
Yeah, and that was that, and I love that station and everything, but that was a turning point, I think, mentally for me. And so when I got out and all this happened, and I took my break, I thought I was going to go get another job in news, but I'm like, I got to find something else. And I was doing freelance, actually, and that's a great way for people who are looking to get out of news. Is I was doing freelance writing for people and creating videos, because I've always kind of done videos on the side. I have a lot of gear. And one of my clients said, you should really think about starting your own business and just get out of news, And I thought, I don't know if I can do that. So I just did it. I just jumped and I just did it. And I have not regretted it 1 second. It took me, I just had my 2-year, what you were referring to on LinkedIn. I just posted that I had my 2-year, my second year in business for myself with my company. And it's taken me so many different places. I've seen so many different things creating videos for people, but it's actually taken this 2 years to even build up a decent clientele too. So it doesn't happen overnight, but I was so determined for myself not to go back to the newsroom, because I felt like it was stifling to me. And I really I think I was always kind of an entrepreneur at heart, and I really enjoyed doing this and getting out of the business. And even though you are technically, I feel like, working harder than you did in news, because you're working for yourself, it doesn't feel that hard.
Yeah, it feels so much different. And the fact that you're not answering to someone, and we've all had management where you don't really like the direction you're being told to go in, or you feel like, you couldn't work on the types of projects you would, so it's very difficult to be in that situation. And like you were saying, have no life, and be working 24/7.
That's exactly, once you get that taste of freedom. And trust me, I never thought, for a long time, I never thought I would leave news, because I thought, oh, the people that leave news, they just can't hack it anymore, and that's what I told myself. And once I got out, I was like, what was I thinking? This is great. And I have a lot of friends that are still in the business, and I don't doubt, I'm so glad that they are so successful and doing so well at it. But for me, I just can't do it anymore. I can't do that grind. I'd rather do my own grind.
Yeah, we're working where if you make extra money or you do something extra, that goes to you, and it doesn't, like no matter how hard you worked at WABC, they didn't pay you anymore for that. But if you work harder at your own business, you get to keep all of that.
And it's just so much more rewarding. And being somebody like, I didn't know anything about business. I had done some accounting for a company, because I didn't get into news until I was in my 30s.
Wow.
So I had done other work before.
You look like you're in your 30s. What the heck?
Well, I still am.
All right.
Maybe about a year, but so anyway, it was just, it's just, if people are looking to get out of it, get your side hustle going on, get something on the side going on, and then eventually you just have to make the leap. And it's so worth it. It's so worth it. At least for me. I don't know.
Well, I hope this is encouraging for people watching. And I've even talked to several people recently, like ever since I quit my job and kind of made it public. I've heard of at least 3 or 4 people I know personally deciding to leave as well. I do think there's something, and again, as we know, TV news for most people is not super lucrative. So it's not like one of those things where you're walking away from tons and tons of money. Right. You're really not. And I think that's another misnomer about TV news, is that people on TV make a ton of money.
Oh, yeah.
There's very few people that make a lot of money in news. So like leaving for a lot of people and finding an equivalent paid job, or finding something that's just as lucrative in TV news, it's not really hard. Right. Just because, especially if someone's working at a smaller market, a guy I know, he left a few months ago. he got a job. He was like, this kid was like phenomenal. He was like probably 23 or 24. He was already working full time, but going to school for public relations.
Wow.
So he ended up getting a job in PR for an airline. And I was like, you need to do that. There's just so much more room for upward mobility there,
Right.
and once you get into it, then you can get other PR jobs too. And it's just sad. It's sad that TV news is just at a point where it does not pay very well.
That's such a misconception. And that's also on the other side, that's also a reason why it's hard for people to leave, because it's hard to really build that nest egg where you feel like, okay, I have a backup and I'm good. That's why I went to real estate school while I was working, because I wanted to have something. If I wanted to get out, I could go to. So.
Yeah, and for me, I had started, luckily at CNN, they allowed me to have a YouTube channel. I know for someone like you weren't allowed to do that on the side, which kind of could stink, because your on-air brand is something that you could use to build. But a lot of these people are in a position where they can't do that. But luckily I was where I could have the YouTube channel for a couple of years and start growing it. I do think, I do wish TV stations would kind of loosen up with that, just because it's kind of unfortunate for people, because again, like someone like you or someone who's on air would be a great fit for being on air, doing something on YouTube, or doing, building some sort of personal brand where they're on camera. But a lot of these people are like, why doesn't so-and-so from Channel 8 have a YouTube channel? Well, this is why, a lot of these people aren't really loud. Or I was talking to somebody and people are afraid about coming off wrong or doing anything that would jeopardize their job. So there is a bit of fear among people on air that they will do something, or, even one thing that just comes off, negatively, and that could be it for them.
You're so right about that, because there would be things where I would get a nasty email because I didn't have nail polish on my fingers or something. So it's so judgmental sometimes, and it can be scary to try and do that and put yourself even more out there.
Yeah, because then, and again, we've seen people are making, saying nasty things about pregnant weather ladies, or, what do you have are there any that stick out in your mind as far as like really weird emails or letters?
Oh my God, I got the meanest email one time, and I kind of don't blame them. So the very first time I anchored in a small market, I just was horrible. I'm not gonna lie, I was bad. And I got an email just telling me how bad I was, that I didn't deserve to do anything in TV, and that I was a loser. It was just, it's still, this is like 10 years ago, and it still sticks with me.
That's horrible. I feel like the people and I've dealt with a lot of crazy people writing and calling. I felt bad for you guys because you had to deal with it in person, out in the community, having people come up to you and say weird stuff. But I don't think people realize how hurtful it is. And how much it affects the people you're saying this to. You're a real person.
They won't say it to your face, though. They'll say it to you in an email or on
Facebook, or your Facebook page or whatever, and it's like, I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I just think people are wasting their time. And also I think they don't understand how much it hurts people. And I wish people would realize, what, this is not the answer. I've gotten a lot of negative comments on YouTube myself, mostly about my eyebrows. And I've just deleted them at this point. I'm like, this person obviously has nothing going on. Right. Their opinion means nothing.
I think your eyebrows look great.
I'm trying, it's hard. Like in a couple of my videos, I had my eyebrows are very hard to pencil, try to fill in. And every time it's different. But I've gotten I get at least 3 comments a day about the eyebrows. I thought about making a troll video about it, but I don't really want to acknowledge, you know what I mean? Like a video like my eyebrows suck or something. I don't know, but we'll have to see. But I really don't want to give these people the benefit of the doubt. I just delete their comments and just get them out, because what happens is you click on there, and I'm sure the same thing with you. The people who are writing you, I'm sure they probably have a lot that you could criticize about them, but obviously that's not something you can do.
Yeah. And to me, it's just like, oh, whatever. I don't got time for that.
Yeah. It's like, just get a real life. Stop emailing these people. I talked to another gentleman. He said he got an email or something, or a letter about his pit stains. It's like, it happens, people. You know what? Like,
Working out in the sun.
I know.
Okay.
You're in Florida. It's like 95 degrees. Like,
God, I feel for guys. They're in their suits and everything. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Well, this has been a great conversation. So I want to ask, like, how can you kind of tell people about your businesses that you have going on?
Well, it's, I feel like my business has evolved since I started it, but basically I create videos, marketing videos for people's products, places, events, and people at their company. I've partnered with a lot of great people who I now help them create videos for their clients, and I have clients of my own. Since I do have my real estate license and I do practice in real estate, I have created this niche, I guess, and I'm learning now that it's good to have a niche.
Oh, yeah.
It's I do a lot of creating videos because I am an FAA certified drone pilot as well. So, which is I love doing it, but I really do think if you are going to do it, even if it's just for fun, you really need to know your stuff because you can get yourself in so much trouble.
And we've seen the people who inadvertently get themselves into trouble.
It's like I really think I'm because you have to know aviation. You have to know how to read aviation maps and all this kind of stuff. It's really hard, actually, or for me it was. But I think that's important. But now I have this niche where I do a lot of work that I do. I'd say probably about half my work I do is media and marketing, different, not just videos, but also website content and social media content, since I've learned enough of that from news, but doing a lot of that for people who practice in commercial real estate. They have large parcels of land and they're looking to have them developed or sold. And so I create a lot of videos that tell basically a story about that land, where it says, what are the attractions, what makes that land valuable, what's it near, that kind of stuff. And I use a lot of drone footage for that as well. I mean, I work with lawyers. Just before this, I did a webinar. I hosted a webinar. I do a lot of just anything that has to do with video. I'm on it,
Renee, I'd love to see you on YouTube. Come on, girl. Let's do it. And you know what? Drone footage on YouTube is super popular too.
Really? I have on my YouTube channel, I mostly have just the videos that I've created for people. It's a lot of marketing.
All right. I will link to it. I'll find it. I'm sure I can find you. I imagine the demand for drone video must be pretty good because it seems like everybody wants drone footage of stuff now.
Yeah. And the thing about drone video is in real estate, the time that there was a lot of development was before the bust. And that was a time when drones really, I mean, they weren't for commercial use for you and I to use. So the drones didn't exist then when we had a large boom in real estate. Well, now real estate is getting back to normal. So now, oh, look, we have drones and we can do all this stuff. So people definitely want it. So I love doing that aspect of it. And I think the video and the pictures that you get from there, it's just awesome. You can't get that on a ladder with a camera.
No, I personally love watching drone. Did it take you a long time to get the license and everything?
It took a couple months because I did a course on it and to prepare. You don't have to do the course to take the test, but I wanted to make sure I passed. And it takes you a little while, and then you've got to practice a lot because I have crashed drones. I'm on drone number 5. Yeah. I mean, it happens. It just happens, and it doesn't really happen much anymore, but in the beginning it really happened because I was still getting used to doing it. So
that's interesting. My husband was interested in doing that, and we were thinking of like getting him like a toy drone just to practice on before you got. What kind of drone recommendations would you have?
I'll be honest with you. I know that a lot of people who have businesses, they use a DJI Maverick. Those are, over $1,000 for the drones. And just in my experience, if I crash $1,000 drone, I'm going to be a little ticked off, or because you get birds that actually want to dive bomb these drones sometimes, but it just makes me a little too nervous to have something that nice. So I'm very old school. I use the Phantom 3 standard drone. It's about, $400 or $500 drone. And I, get different parts and add to it and everything. So to me, it does the job. It really does. And if it crashes, I don't feel like, you
Yeah,
know,
because at least you're making money from the videos too, so you're
right.
over time recouping your cost.
Yeah.
Um,
And you just, and especially in the beginning, because I was, getting more and more equipment, all of that's expensive. And I was just trying to keep my costs down. And I just stuck with that drone because I know that drone really well. I know how to use it really well. So I'm fine with that. And
that
that's a
is
good one to start on.
Yeah, that's so interesting because like we've dreamed about getting. We're like we want to get a drone. We haven't bought one yet, but we both think my husband and I both think it would be a lot of fun. Although I would be a terrible drone pilot, so he'd have to be the one. I can barely drive, so he'd have to be the one doing. He'd have to be the one doing that. I don't think I would be the one getting in trouble. Like I would be the person that would accidentally fly the drone into a stadium or something like those
Oh,
people.
good.
That would be me, and I'm totally self-aware of that. Like it would be cool with the toy one, like just a little one that I couldn't do much damage with. I do think it would be a lot of fun though.
You could be the spotter. It's always nice to have a spotter when you're droning. So you
Okay, so maybe I can do that. I can be I don't know. I'll have to figure something out. I can certainly edit the drone footage for sure. And I just think drone video is bringing vlogging to this. Like every vlogger on YouTube now uses drones for like daily vlogging, which is really cool.
the whole vlogging thing, I'm like, God, that's so much editing. That's all I
It
need to
is.
do.
Well, you know what though? A lot of these people are, especially when you get bigger, they're paying people to do the editing. In fact,
Yeah.
there's this service people are starting to use called VidChops, and you
No,
can
I
pay
haven't heard
someone
that.
like $800 a month to edit unlimited videos.
Write
Like
that one.
it's interesting. So apparently, you like drop. I guess during the beta, it was $500. At
Mhm.
this point, I'm like, yeah, I can't justify paying someone. Like I could put out more videos, but at the same time, I'm like, the reason I'm doing this is so I could do the editing myself.
Right.
During the beta, they were offering a monthly subscription for $500. You could only submit one video at a time, but as many as you could. Basically, when they were done with your project, you could submit another one. But you drop box them of the footage, tell them what you want, and they send you back a finished product. I've heard people using it and they like it. Now, after the beta ended, they upped the price to $800. But that's actually pretty cheap for month
Great. For
for
a
a
month.
whole month. I do think there's a lot of opportunity for people like us in that space because there are a lot of YouTubers that are making enough money where they
Right.
can outsource things like editing or graphic design or some of the producing. There's a lot with that. And I do think there's, for people like us, there's definitely some ways to, transition out and do something else. But it's funny, like you see these people like Casey Neistat, and they're making these like film
His
quality
are
vlogs.
awesome.
It's
I love his.
insane. But yeah, if you haven't checked them out, Casey Neistat is one of the better vloggers. There's also a guy named Devin Supertramp. He has made some of the coolest videos I've ever seen in my life using drone. Like he did like a Super Bowl ad with Papa John's and Pepsi. I'll send you the link after this and I'll link it below. I don't even like football at all, but this was like the coolest. So the premise of the video was they were in a plane. They actually had two. So he has like a behind the scenes video where he talks about setting this thing up. They had two planes, one to shoot the other plane, and they made it look like all these retired NFL players were skydiving out of the plane and throwing a football to each other, and then they land in a stadium. It was like the coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And this guy shoots on like an $80,000 camera setup or
Oh
something
my
crazy like
gosh.
that. But there's some people that are doing some amazing things, and it is funny how everyone is now using drones for like like time lapse shots or the video
Yeah.
Casey Neistat did. You probably saw this viral video. It was a few years ago, snowboarding with the NYPD.
Yes, I saw that one. Yeah.
But like I watched his behind the scenes video and they had to time the drone with like them snowboarding behind the car. Like it was just great. Like I have so much appreciation for people who are making those kind of videos. It's so cool.
And you and I, from that standpoint, we know how much it takes to just make a video sometimes, and just to make a video that elaborate. I mean, I just have such a more appreciation after now editing and shooting and doing all that stuff and seeing that makes me think, wow.
And that is a good thing about, I think, having these platforms is you can do whatever you want.
Mhm.
If you wanted to make like that's something you could never do it at a news station. They wouldn't let you do that. But there's so many things you can do on your own. That's just so exciting. I don't know. It's just very cool. Well, what's your favorite social media platform right now?
It's funny. I have an Instagram page just for myself, and in news and everything, you have your work Twitter, your work Facebook, your all that. But I had just my own Instagram account, and that's the only one that I have for myself. I haven't even created one for my business now, which I probably should. But that is what I can get lost on and just zone out and be like, drooling person.
Look
Just
at all these Photoshop people and photos, and you're like,
I
oh,
know, right?
everything looks so perfect.
Like, oh, let me just get that wrinkle off my face, and post it. But Instagram is just it's just such a visual medium. It's all pictures and videos, and I just can get lost sometimes because you'll see something that comes up in your the feed that says what's new and happening, and they're not necessarily people who are your friends. So you just find different people that way. Or I I try and be a vegetarian. I try as much as I can. So I started clicking on one person's Instagram, and then it took me to another person's, and I learned more cooking stuff on that person's, and then it took me into it's like that never-ending chain that you can get stuck in. So I like it and I hate it for that point.
It is definitely a bit of a time suck, but it's a fun, the food photography accounts.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, this is the things people are doing are incredible. Like you just
Right.
realize how talented people are
Right.
and how
Right.
many folks out there that are like their photography is amazeballs. They're
Love.
making like found this lady's account even yesterday. It was like Sweeto Polita or something. She
Uh-huh.
makes like crazy cakes, but they're like awesome. And she makes and sells her own sprinkle combat. Like she makes like her own sprinkle mixes and sells them online. Like she had one
Wow.
called like the rock glam cake. It was purple and black. It
Okay.
had black frosting and it had like just super cool like silver sprinkles, rainbow sprinkles. There's just so many accounts that are fun and there's just so many interesting people, and I think that's something that social media definitely like opens you up to that you didn't know was out there, I guess.
Yeah, it makes you feel connected with the whole world. There's my favorite Instagram account is this guy. I think he's in Russia, I want to say, or something. But he's a fisherman on a boat, and I guess they are in this area. They just have these oddest fish and animals that they bring up to the surface. And I'm always showing somebody. I'm like, look at this lady that's 5 eyes, and so that's it. Just you see things that make you feel more connected with the rest of the world, even though you haven't left your house. So I
You're
mean,
like, all right, I'm in my PJs, but
right.
this stuff's getting exciting here. Well,
It's good and bad.
what are you? Can you share your social media handles, your website with everybody, and I'll link it. I'll link everything.
My website is Use Big Red. My company name is called Big Red Media. It's named after actually my brother. People think it's named after me, and I'm like, I'm not that.
I figured it was after your hair color, but I wasn't sure.
No, actually, I feel like people ask that, and I'm like, no, I would never name it after myself. I just feel like that's so like, get over yourself. So it's actually named after my brother who passed away in 2009.
Oh,
He had flaming red hair. So we're a bunch of redheads over here.
that's such a nice tribute. Very.
Yeah, it's a long story behind it, but I named it after him. I always knew I was going to do something and name it after him. I'm glad I got to tell you that because I don't want people to think I named it after myself.
After your, because I didn't notice you had reddish hair in your photos, so I was like, okay, that makes sense.
So my business name is called Big Red Media, and my website is usebigred.com, USEBIGRED.com. And actually, if you go to that, it links to all my social media.
All right.
There. It links to my LinkedIn, my Twitter, which is Renee Stoll TV. To tell you the truth, I can't remember if my Facebook is Renee Stoll TV too, but it should be. But it's all on there. And then I'm on Instagram, and I'm a private Instagram, but I'm pretty open too. If you want to find me on there, I'm Nizzle Nay. It's NIZZLE_Nay NAY. So.
All right, and I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but what do you think? Do you have any ideas of what the TV news business could do to stay relevant and to survive?
You know, Jen, if I knew that, I would make a lot more money, but
I know I asked somebody that and he's like, no, I would do my own news thing if I knew that. I was like, would you consult? He's like, no, I would create my own thing.
You know, I have a friend who is doing something that I think is going to be more popular. She works at basically a virtual news station, and she anchors the news. And I'm not 100% sure how it works. I just saw that she was working there and some details from her social media, but it seems like basically they anchor, and you know, some towns are small and they don't have a local news station, or sometimes, you know, you downsize so much because the cost is so great that you don't have enough people to work. So maybe you just want to have that anchor base there and then have the reporters go out and do their job. And that saves them from having to hire an anchor. So, so that's the premise of it. But it basically, she's the anchor for so many different cities, and she does the news and it gets sent out, and I'm sure it probably looks like it's there in that city. So I think that might become more prevalent, the virtual newsroom. And like we were talking about before, these stations need to get on YouTube. They really do. They need to do more with YouTube. They need to have more than just their package being on YouTube. They really need to tap into that market and figure that out.
Yeah, and I think TV stations need to create relationships with people, and I feel like many of them are not doing a very good job of that. Like they post stuff on Facebook. There are some journalists I've seen doing a great job on Facebook with interacting with people. I think there's other ways to do it too, and just to create specific content for the platforms rather than just burp out whatever they did for the newscast and just post that. And the other thing people don't realize is that longer videos do well on YouTube. So these minute 30 packages, you know, YouTube kind of likes videos between like 5 and 10 minutes, I've been reading. And again, as you and I know, you could never do a 5-minute story.
Right. And it always depends what platform you're using, because every platform has like a threshold of retention what that sweet spot is. And for YouTube, you can really be more expressive there. And just think of all the stories you did in news where you would have loved to have really told the story, but you only had 1 minute and 15 seconds and you had to cut out so much. And then to me, as a journalist at that time, that would just be heartbreaking to me, because I'm like, oh, I just want to give all the details, you know?
Yeah. And that's why I like this sort of format of what we're doing now, is because I'm sure when you left your last station, they didn't give you an hour to talk about whatever you want, you know, just the business. Like there aren't very many platforms to allow journalists to really, you know, express themselves in a longer format way.
Right.
You know, so I kind of like what this is doing, because again, we can have conversations. I've interviewed people that I worked with, and this was the longest conversation we've ever had. Because you know, at work, you don't really have time to you really don't have time to chit chat with people. Like, you know, there's really no time. Like occasionally you can have some conversations, but they're not usually that long. So some people I worked with for a year or two, like I still barely knew them.
Yeah, I think my longest conversation I've had is with photogs when we're driving to a story. You know, that's about it. It's, you know, and that's the thing. I think newsrooms are so, you know, hurry up. We got to be first. Oh, we got breaking news. We got this. We got that. Somehow there has to be some slowdown in the sense that you have to take read the temperature of what's going on in, you know, the platform world, and figure out how to tap into that, because who knows if news is it's not going to be the same in 10 years. It's definitely not going to be the same. So, you know, it's easy to say that now from this side. I'm sure if I was working in the newsroom and somebody told me that, I'd be like, please get over yourself. You know, I'm busy, you know? So I just, I don't know what the answer is for where this is going and how they can really change what they're doing.
Yeah, I think at least if they stream the newscasts on YouTube or online somewhere, I think, like I noticed one station in Fresno started streaming all of their newscasts on Facebook. Again, I think it's smart. I think eventually Facebook will start to monetize more. Right. So like, that's the thing, like there is money by doing that, you know, from the ads. There's ads on YouTube, you know, Snapchat hasn't really monetized at this point. So, that's the thing, most of them will eventually.
Yeah.
I do think it would be interesting if Facebook starts letting people make more money from ads. There will definitely be more video content there.
Yeah. And I think the cost sometimes of just when you're in a newsroom, you don't want to adapt to something new until you absolutely have
Yeah.
to, because there's just so much to do and to keep on, and that's just from my standpoint. I wasn't a manager. So think about from the manager standpoint, it's not just us. They're thinking about the reporters, they're thinking about their budgets and, all that kind of stuff. So who knows? I'll be tuning in now.
I know, right? Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out. I want to give you the opportunity, Renee, to ask the people watching right now any question you would like. Does not have to be related to news, can be literally anything.
You know what I would love to know? On my website, I like to give tips to people who try and do it themselves, because I've been a big DIY person myself. And not everybody can afford to hire me for a video, what have you. So I like to give tips to say, hey, if you're trying to do it yourself, this is how you can shoot a whole video on your iPhone, that kind of thing. Give me topics. I would love to write more about different topics, different things that I can help people out, just how to do it themselves and figure it out. So I would love
That's a good one. So like if you are trying to create videos on your own,
your own marketing.
What kind of how-to videos would you like to see? If you're watching, feel free to comment below and I'll make sure Renee gets them. And if you really appreciate you guys watching, hope you enjoyed these types of videos. I'm Jennifer Moore, ex-TV producer. And if you are also an ex-TV newser and want to be featured on the show, let me know in the comments, or you can hit me up on Twitter. But Renee, again, thank you so much. This has been such a great conversation. And now you really make me want to go out and get a drone.
You make me want to get back on my sewing machine.
I know that too. So yeah, we did chat about that. I maybe you could post some sewing stuff on your Instagram. Oh, and I'll send you, once you start looking for sewing accounts on Instagram, you'll 6 hours will go by. You're gonna be like, wow, what happened here? Well, again, thank you so much. And I'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Jen.